Hello. Welcome to This Week in Politics. Well, there's a couple of stories that we're going to look over this week. The first thing I want to do is take a general look at the 2018 election. And I want to talk about and say out loud what's at stake. Then I'm going to take a look at the Facebook so-called fake news. And then I want to close with the story about cleaning up our voter rolls. Now, I've covered this before, but there's been an update, and I want to bring us the update. Before we get started, I would like to take this opportunity to say that this program and all the programs that we do are produced by the Prayer Box Ministry. So if you'd like to know a little bit more about who we are and what we do, go over there and take a look at our account. It's www.prayerboxministry.org. We have recently almost doubled the content on that website. We're in the process of adding a digital store over there where we're going to sell some stuff. And you could have somebody read the Bible to you or watch our programs or listen to the podcast. But go over there and check us out, prayerboxministry.org. Okay. Now, the 2018 election, midterm elections coming up. First, let me tell you what historically happens. Historically, what happens is that the party in the White House usually loses seats in the midterm elections. And conventional wisdom says that it is because they are dissatisfied after 2 years. And I don't believe that's true. I believe the reason they do that is Americans are too worried about putting too much power in one party. So they divide it up. I think that's the thinking. It's silliness, but I do believe that's the logic behind most, because I've had people tell me that. And that pretty much explains it. That's why it's a general rule. But this particular time, there is so much at stake. First off, I think that for the Republicans to, and when I say Republicans, please remember that, in my opinion, Republicans and Democrats, as we've known them in the past, do not exist. I think we have Tea Party and non-established establishment to win. They're going to need to concentrate on a few things: illegal immigration, legal immigration, and the economy. The economy, because it's booming. We haven't seen a boom like this in my lifetime, and I lived through the Reagan Revolution. This is unprecedented. What's going on here, the speed with which it has happened, the amount of wealth generated just in the stock market alone. For every 1,000 points that it goes up or down, there is $1 trillion of wealth created or lost. Since Trump has come into office, there has been 8,000 points added to the stock exchange. It was a little over 19, and right now it's at 27 and change, I think, or is it 26 and change? Anyway, 7,000 or 8,000 points added. That is $7 trillion added just in the stock market wealth. Not to mention all of the wealth that came from overseas back to this country through the repatriation of the tax law that he wrote. Not to mention the unemployment that is the lowest in forever for blacks and Hispanics, the second lowest for women since the 50s, or the lowest for women since the 50s, actually. And the unemployment overall is 3.6, I believe, as we sit here and speak. So they need to run on the economy. They need to run on immigration, building the wall, because the Democrats are being obstructionist and we can't get the financing until we get the votes. We need the votes in the Senate. And one place where I'm pretty sure we can pick up a seat is in Missouri. I think Claire McCaskill is going to go down, but we're going to need help. We're going to need everybody in Missouri to get out and vote. Let's vote McCaskill out. We need also to talk about legal immigration. There's rule changes that need to happen, and here's why. Even if we were to fix the problem magically today, we would be in the same boat in 5 years because of our legal immigration. We have a lottery system. We have no control over who comes in. We just draw names out of a hat, and they get to come in. We have chain migration where we allow one legal immigrant in that we have vetted, and they can bring in as many of their family near and far that they want, and they don't have to be close family. They can be second and third cousins removed, but they can bring in as many as they want. And the average Mexican that comes in legally brings in 6 family members with him. Think about that. So there's a lot that needs to be done on the legal immigration. And I believe those are the points that the Tea Party candidates are going to need to concentrate on. And I believe the Republicans, as a general rule, will run on those 2 things. The immigration, both legal and illegal, and the economy. Now, what's at stake? What if the Democrats take the House? If the Democrats take the House, the Trump agenda is off of the table for 2 years. And here's why. They are going to tie up everything with massive amounts of meaningless investigations. They're going to waste time with talk of impeachment for 2 years. They will tie it all up and try to take it into the next election, general election in 2020, and try to use that to influence the election in 2020. That's their goal. If they get the House. What if they get the Senate? Because right now, if Mitch McConnell employs the nuclear option, we can get anything we want through there. He just won't do that. Now, what is the nuclear option? The nuclear option is doing exactly what the Constitution says. 51 votes or 50 votes plus a tiebreaker from the vice president, and we can get anything we want passed. However, the Senate rewrote their own rules. This is not law, this is just custom, that it takes 60 votes to get anything done. We have 53 votes in the Senate. So even if every Republican voted, we can't get anything done until that nuclear option is used. Now, he's used it twice. Once to get the Supreme Court nominee through, and once to get, well, I guess he's used it every time they get a judge, any federal judge or Supreme Court judge, to get that passed, and he did it for the tax cut. In those 2 instances, we got exactly what we wanted. That won't be an option. But I tell you one thing, if the Democrats take over the Senate, the Democrats proved when Obama was in office, they have no problem at all employing that nuclear option. And they will do everything Trump has done, they'll undo, and they'll use the nuclear option to do it. They have proven over the last year and a half that every Democrat in the Senate will vote lock, stock, and barrel. All they need is 51 votes, and they will use that and shove it down our throats. They'll undo the tax cut. They'll undo all of the regulation cutting that Trump has done. They'll bring back Obamacare. They will do all of that and use the nuclear option without even thinking about it. That's at stake. The court is at stake. The appellate court, the federal court, they will go through. Now, Trump has done a really nice job of getting a lot of court appointees, but there's still a lot to be done, and the Democrats will put all left-wing liberals on the court, and that will happen. if they take the Senate back. The wall will not be built if the Democrats take the House or the Senate or both. We will never get the funding for the wall. That's just never going to happen. And because if they take one or both, paralysis will set in. Now, Trump has got a lot done. He's achieved a lot, and a lot of it has been without the help of very many people up there. The two major impacts he has had has been on the courts and the economy, and both of those we got through legislation. But other than that, the House and Senate is still in paralysis mode. The Democrats are resisting every single thing that happens. And we will spend the next 2 years concentrating and listening to worthless accounts of impeachable offenses. The liberals aren't being imprisoned, but that's a whole different program. So it is imperative that we, as conservative Republicans, get out and vote and take all of our Republican friends out to vote. And I have a feeling, I haven't seen this anywhere or heard this anything, but this is just for me. I would be willing to bet that in urban areas, and by urban, I just mean big cities, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, Houston. I would not be the least bit surprised if the liberals and the Democrats used the same thing that Obama did in 2008 when he had the ex-Black Panthers marching around key voting sites with rifles to intimidate the white voters there. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. They're going to do everything they can, and even if it means breaking the law, to win the votes. Don't be intimidated. Don't be scared. Go vote and vote Republican. Now, the Koch brothers. They are two brothers who are extremely wealthy, and every year they go and they donate massive amounts of money to Republicans. And this has been a good thing up to this point. However, Trump is not New World Order kind of guy. The Koch brothers are. Now, I don't remember the exact numbers, but let me give you an idea of the size of the Koch brothers, okay? They had, if I remember right, they have about, 26,000 employees, 13,000 of which live out of this country. So these people make their money out of the country and bring it into this country and sell it, which means they're doing what Trump is trying to stop, using cheap labor to build materials that should be being made in this country. They've taken them offshore, paid cheap wages, and bring them back into this country and selling them to Americans at American prices. That's how they're making their money. Now, the Koch brothers recently had a gathering of all the moneyed people in the country, and I think in order to get into this meeting, you had to have a certain amount to give, and I believe that amount was 10 million to donate in order to get into this thing. But they raised quite a bit of money, of course. They are not backing the Tea Party. They are not backing Trump. They are backing liberal establishment Republicans. And that is going to make a difference. In fact, in some instances, they will be backing Democrats who are running against Tea Party candidates. Now, how will that matter? They right now are promising $400 million to go into races around the country. That is what, that is about $8 million a state. Now think about that. In a little state like North Dakota, what do you think one of those seats up there would cost for advertising to win? You think $1 million might do it? I think. That leaves $7 million more for the rest of the state. They're going to have an influence, and we need to be careful. The Koch brothers are going to back Democrats and globalists, the New World Order guys. You know, the Koch brothers, they backed Bush, both W and the old. But here's what needs to happen. Now, Trump won the presidency on ideas and ideals, like I have been saying for decades. And he won, even though Hillary had $1 billion to spend for the presidency, and she lost. Trump won with much less. And so the Tea Party candidates that are going to win are going to do it on ideas. The globalists and the Democrats that win are going to do it by lies and polls. Okay? That's the way the Democrats always win. Lying, illegal voting, and polls. So, when we go out to vote as conservative Republicans, we need to not be influenced. Don't believe what you hear in the press. We all have the internet now. If you want to know how a certain candidate votes or what they believe in, Google them. Go to their website. Do the research. But don't buy into ads. Now, it was this week that Trump tweeted against the Koch brothers, and that's why it made the news. So, as the election comes up for 2018 midterms, I cannot overstate enough how important the results of the midterms are. Most midterms in my lifetime didn't really matter. There was once or twice under Reagan, but for the most part, midterms really didn't mean that much because there wasn't that much at stake. Republican or Democrat, they've all been globalist. And so it didn't really matter, Republican or Democrat, what difference did it make? This time it makes a difference because now it's globalists against conservative Tea Party. And that will be huge. The boom that we have seen is from conservative Republicans, not liberal Democrats. And that's why they're so angry, because we have proven everything they have said for the last 50 years to be wrong. And we proved it in a year and a half. We need to keep it going because if the Democrats win in this election in a year and a half, we won't be having this same fun conversation about the economy. It'll be about how it got tanked and the top 5 reasons why it went down, and none of them will be because of the Democrats. That was sarcasm, by the way. Okay, so now the next story I want to take a look at is Facebook. Now, I have been covering this story for about 8 months or so, and it started for me before the election. Zuckerberg kept saying, it's not our place to censor material on the websites, and it's not our job, and we shouldn't be involved in that. They have freedom of and that he was saying all the right things. As soon as Hillary lost, he jumped right back in and said, yeah, we got fake news on here. The Russians did it, and we're going to fix it. And I have chronicled all the things that they have done. So this week, Facebook comes out and fake news accounts that the Russians did. The Russians, you know. So I did some research, um, and I'm going to go over this ad in detail, but I want you to think about this, okay? Zuckerberg has been talking about and doing things for a year and a half, okay? He has hired outside firms. He says uninterested. That's not true. They are all ultra left wing leading to ferret out fake news. Okay, so if you're an ultra liberal, what do you call fake news or hate speech? What that? Conservatism. So he spent a year and a half, hired outside firms. He has spent tens of millions of dollars on hiring people, changing algorithms, checking out stuff, millions, tens of millions of dollars. He has doubled and tripled the staff that go over that 2 or 3 times, all for the sake of catching fake news. And it's not fake news, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. Now, here is some of the algorithms that I am aware of. As an example, let's say you have 1,000 friends on Facebook. When you post something, hypothetically, and it used to be all of your friends would see your post. That's not true anymore. There are certain people of your friends that will see them, and it's a pretty small percentage, like 10 to 20% will see your post. And it's not the same 10 or 20% that see it every time. If your posts are consistently conservative, then your consistently conservative friends are not going to see it. They'll see some of them sometimes, and some of them they won't see. So they are already restricting freedom of speech. And I want to put in right here, I went over to a website called MeWe, M-E-W-E, and that is an unrestricted site. They pride themselves on freedom of speech. I have gone over there and joined. I'm just learning the ins and outs of it. It seems to be a pretty cool site. I've joined several Christian groups over there, and it's been awesome. There's nobody restricting speech of any type. So MeWe, M-E-W-E. So 15 months later, hired all these firms, tens of millions of dollars spent on hiring staff and algorithm changes, restrictions put on all accounts. Every account on Facebook has some type of restrictions on it. And the results made headlines. I want to hold this up so you can see the ad that I'm going. This was in the contracted for restriction on all accounts on Facebook, and here's what they caught. They caught 30 accounts. I have 4 Facebook accounts myself. So they spent all of that time, all that effort, and all that money to catch 5 of me. Or 7 or whatever it is. That's hilarious. That's laughable. Now, how big of an impact did these 30 accounts have? The Russians spent, are you ready for this? $11,000. Tens of millions of dollars, a year and a half, thousands of people, restrictions on all accounts, and they caught somebody spending $11 million and blamed it on the Russians. That couldn't be more funny. And the left is counting this as a huge victory for Facebook and Zuckerberg, and we caught the Russians, and you know, let me here's some questions people ought to be asking. First off, question all of the things that they've done. All of that is restriction of freedom of speech. Okay, everything that Facebook has done has been a violation of freedom of speech, and if somebody takes them to court, they will lose. And I hope somebody does. I just don't have the money to do that. But let's assume this is all okay and above board, and let's assume that you mean out of all the countries in the world, there's no Chinese ad trying to interfere with our election? No Chinese accounts? There's been no Middle Eastern accounts? There's been no Iranian or Iraqi or North Korean? None of those people have any Facebook accounts, Instagram accounts trying to screw with our elections. But we're going to call these 30 accounts that they found were Russian. That's just silliness. Now, I want to go over this article I was telling you about, making a big deal out of this. Listen to the first paragraph. Facebook Incorporated said it discovered a new group of accounts that engaged, now listen to how they word this, engaged in coordinated political agitation and misinformation efforts ahead of November's midterm elections, an echo of Russian activities on the platform during the 2016 U.S. presidential campaign. See what they're doing? They're linking these 30 accounts to justify something that they claimed the Russians did in 2016. And now here we go. The social media giant on Tuesday said it removed 32 pages and accounts from its main. No, notice it does not say 32 individuals or 32 organizations or 32 different people. It said it removed 32 pages. Now, remember, I said I've got 4 pages and accounts for 30. So it's a combination between pages and accounts. So one account could have 4, 5, 6, 10 pages from its main service and Instagram photo sharing app that were created. Okay, so not just Facebook and Instagram. And they were created between March of 2017 and May of this year. So they were created in the last 9 months. And it took them right till now to catch them, which include the names as Aztlan Warriors, AZTLAN Warriors, Black Elevation, and Resistors, and largely targeted causes on the left, collectively created more than, let's see, now this sounds big, collectively created more than 9,500 posts. Okay, so let's do some quick math. So 30 accounts divided into 9,500 works out to 3,000. No, 300 and some posts per account. Okay, so 300 posts divided by, so this is per account. So 300 posts divided by roughly 30 accounts, 1 post a day. Most people do more than 1 post a day on their Facebook account anyway. So this isn't a coordinated heavy effort. 1 post a day. And we're followed by more than 290,000 other Facebook accounts. The accounts also promoted 30 real-world events. Okay, so they had 290,000 other Facebook account followers. Okay, let me tell you, you can take a post, boost that post, and then go through and have people follow your account. And it's relatively cheap to do that, to meet more people to have them follow your account. So if you want to get blacks to follow you, then you do pro-black ads and you get them to, so this is not a big deal. Okay, so they had 290,000 people following 30 accounts. So 30 accounts goes in, that's about 3,000 followers. About 3,000 followers per account. That's not hard to do. That's where they spent the $11,000, is getting people to follow their accounts, not on their ads, not on their promos, not on their posts. Now, having said all that, now listen to what they said. The revelation, okay, it's a revelation. The revelation shows Facebook continues to struggle with preventing misuse of its platform despite waves of criticism and the company's repeated pledges to address the problem. Okay, they have created a straw man here. There is fake news on their hands. What do you think we as Americans did before the likes of Zuckerberg told us about fake news from the Russians? Before there was Facebook, and we saw the news on TV, and I know this, mainline news, it was always leftward leaning. So when they said something that we knew was a lie, we just ignored it. We didn't have somebody come through and censor our material or try to discern for me what was a lie and what wasn't. Like I said earlier, if my leaning is conservative, then to me, hate speech is anything that is pro-abortion or pro-homosexual marriage. That to me is offensive. So if you're pro-left-wing leaning, which all these companies and all the websites are, I mean, social media, they're all ultra left-wing liberals, in case you didn't know that. To them, hate speech is anything to do with conservatism or any part of our agenda, the economy. Have you wondered why you're not seeing headlines every day about how great the economy was? It's because of Trump. If Hillary were in office, the headlines would be yelling about what a great economy we had, or what a miracle it was, or what a savior she's been to the economy, and she's the new god of the country. I mean, it would be that, but because it's Trump, you don't hear a thing about it. So now they've created a straw man, fake news. Fake news is not a thing, but they're using fake news to create this straw man on Facebook, and the goal here is to regulate speech on social platforms, not just Facebook, but Google and Twitter. They're all three of these companies are in on this. They don't want to restrict it themselves, even though they have. They're doing it on the QT, hoping that John Q. Public does not figure out what they've done. As soon as it becomes well known that the algorithms for everybody's, and I mean everybody's Facebook accounts is being monitored by Facebook, as soon as they figure that out, revolt is going to happen. Your speech is already being modified, and I can tell you from personal experience. The other show that I do, called The Right Wing Reverend, I used to advertise each one of my posts each week, and I would spend $10. And in that $10, I would reach somewhere between 3,000 to 5,000 people. Okay, and at the time I had about 3,000 followers. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, I noticed, and this is before I was paying attention. It had to be over 2 years ago. I noticed that my same $10 was now reaching half of the people that it was reaching. It dropped to 1,500 is what I was averaging for $10. I just noticed this week that now I'm reaching between 750 and 1,250. So as time goes on, and the name of the program is The Right Wing Reverend, the algorithms have picked out any posts that I do now, and now I'm reaching 750 to 1,250 people, where just 18 to 24 months ago, I was reaching almost 5,000. So they are definitely controlling who sees what content. And don't Zuckerberg is going to be in big trouble. He was in big trouble this week. His company lost over $1 billion, billion and 0.2 billion, I think, because of this. Facebook credited some of the measures they have taken over the last year with helping the new crop of the specter of ongoing interference in U.S. politics just over 3 months ahead of the midterm elections. Again, they're trying to tie it in. Do you see that? And 5 months after special counsel Robert Mueller secured indictments against a group of Russians for using Facebook and other social media platforms to sow discord in the U.S. around the 2016 campaign. The only reason Mueller had any of those things done is because Putin allowed them to come out and stand trial. Now, he did this a while back, and the first time it happened, he indicted, I believe it was 5 Russian companies, and he accused them of hacking and something else. And of course had no proof. But one of the company's guys came forward and said, okay, prove it. Let's go to court. You indicted me. I'm here. Let's go to court and let's have discovery. And by the way, when you do discovery, you find out the proof that your opponent has. Guess what? That up and died. I haven't heard one word about that. Mueller doesn't have any proof. He picked those names out thinking that he would get a free press right on it, which he did, and would not have to face the consequences. And that surprised him when that company showed up. And you know what? The press has been complicit in hiding that. What happened to that? What happened to the discovery? What happened to that guy? What happened to that company? And now they did the same thing. Mueller did the same thing here when they announced those indictments of Russian individuals. None of those are going to come here. And he knows that. Russia and Putin is not going to send those guys over here. I wish they would just send one, because if they send one, we'll see all the discovery. They're not going to. I wish they would. Security isn't a problem you ever completely solve, Zuckerberg said in a post. We face sophisticated and well-funded adversaries. Remember, they spent $11,000 on ads. We face sophisticated, well-funded adversaries, including nation states that are always evolving and trying new attacks. But we're learning and improving quickly, too, and we're investing heavily to keep people safe. Have you been hurt by fake news? Do you feel unsafe from fake news? No, I'm pissed. I don't need Zuckerberg or the government or anybody else keeping me safe from fake news or Russian interference. I need them to buzz off. Capitalism take care of itself. The American people are not stupid. We do not need an arbiter telling us what is fake news and what is not. Again, speech regulated heavily by 2020 because they know that Trump used the internet very effectively to win in 16. And the dirty little secret is Zuckerberg wants to run. Whether he does or not, I don't know. Of people tasked, again, policing content and to better protect users' privacy have contributed to slowing growth. That sent its share down 19% in a single day, erasing, oh, I was wrong. Wasn't 1 billion. It was 119.1 billion in market value. So he lost a lot of money. He's blaming it on fake news. Not true. Executives on, okay, now here comes the fun part. Facebook took great care to cover their tracks using virtual private networks and internet phone services and routing ad purchases through third parties. Facebook has informed lawmakers, other tech companies, and government agencies, including the FBI, and the FBI declined to comment. So what he's saying here is, now remember, so they were saying it was the Russians. And here, Facebook executives said Tuesday they don't have enough evidence to assign responsibility. They don't know who did it. They found 30 accounts. And knowing Facebook, it was by one or two people. This is all smoke, mirrors, and hocus pocus. Several lawmakers pointed the finger at Russia. Well, of course they do. That keeps the Mueller investigation going. And I'll bet you that's garbage. That's garbage. Let's see. Facebook said that there was evidence connecting the accounts to the previous Russian activity, including that a known IRA account holder was a co-administrator of one of the newly deleted pages for 7 minutes. Oh my gosh. They're pulling out everything. The banned accounts, which included, okay, so remember we had 17 accounts and I said they were Facebook and Instagram. So now we're going to break them down, it looks like. The banned accounts, which included 17 profiles, that's 17 either businesses or people, and 8 pages from the platform's main app. Okay, so the platform's main app. So they had one app, one platform, 17 profiles, okay, along with 7 Instagram accounts. Okay, so 17 and 7 is 24 by my count. Where they got 30, I don't know. 7 Instagram accounts, ran 150 ads, costing approximately $11,000 between April and June. That doesn't sound very well financed to me. That sounds like something anybody could theoretically do in a 9-month period. That's $1,000 a month. That's all the money the Russian government is willing to spend to interfere with the U.S. election. I'd say they got a heck of a bargain. $1,000 a month. 90-year-old people get more than that for their Social Security check. As with the IRA account, some of the new batch orchestrated events involved real people. Well, sure. In all, they organized or promoted about 30 events dating back to May 17, one of which attracted the interest of 4,700 Facebook accounts, with 1,400 saying they would attend. That's pablum. That means nothing. Why is Facebook going through all this along with Twitter and Google? First off, it's propaganda. There isn't a week that goes by that Facebook has not got an ad in here. The Wall Street Journal would love to see Zuckerberg run for president. They're giving him all of this free publicity so that when he does run, the Wall Street Journal will definitely get a scoop on it. And as I've said for 2 years now, the goal here is to control the speech specifically of the left or of the right. They want to, and they're already doing that to me. I don't know about everybody else. I know of some people that it is, but I'm not going to speak for them. But for me, they are controlling who sees my stuff. They are not allowing that to go out to all. I worked hard to get a lot of followers so that I could get my content out there, and then they turn right around and restrict the number of people that see my posts. It's pointless. They are controlling speech of the right. I can tell you that as a fact. They're using Russia as scapegoats. They may have accounts. My guess is that Zuckerberg and his group had some people go out there and set up these straw accounts so that they could have a victory, and they're going to use Russia as scapegoats because we can't get to them and Russia's not going to send them to us. The next one they're going to find is going to be China for the same reason. Tech, because they're a lot further ahead than the Russians are in tech. But they're not, they'll indict people and they'll say this certain company did it and we'll never know. This is all smoke and mirrors and voodoo from the part of these social people and the federal government. And the whole goal here is to control speech so they can control who wins the elections so they don't have another Donald Trump happen. Now, there's going to be yet another hearing on Capitol Hill where Zuckerberg and the other two, Google and Twitter, are going to go up to Capitol Hill and have yet another hearing. Let me tell you about this. This is all for publicity's sake. This is all to keep the term fake people to gather information and to make rightful choices. And I promise you, whenever this meeting happens, one of the things that comes out of every one of these meetings is somebody at the hearing says, this social media better get this fake news under control or we'll legislate it. That's the whole goal, and that's what's going to happen. Now, in the short term, for this election, they are setting scapegoats up because they're hedging their bets. But I'm pretty confident that the left is going to lose these elections, and when they do, they're going to start yelling and screaming about Russian interference. And nothing is going to be further from the truth, just like they did with 2016. When they thought Hillary was going to win, they didn't say a word. As soon as she lost, all of a sudden the Russians did it. To which I say, even if they did, Obama was president, not Trump. Why is Trump being investigated? Go investigate Obama. Why wasn't it done? Why wasn't anything done under his watch? It's just silliness. The whole point here is to control free speech on social websites. Remember that. Now, I'm going to set up a scenario for you, and I want you to follow me. Let's say that everything that Facebook says is true. It's not, but let's hearings say is true. It isn't, but let's assume it is. Here's what I have to say, and I'm going to point my finger to prove my point. Stop being so damn self-righteous. Who do you think you are? These are just the ones that I know of, that we have proof of. Iran-Contra. Remember that? That was under a Republican. Sold the drugs in Iran, got the money, bought the guns, and shipped them to the freedom fighters in the Contras down in South America. We know that happened. We had court on it. We were interfering in two different governments. What about the radio propaganda that is currently going on the 53rd parallel between North and South Korea? They blare propaganda from South Korea into North Korea every single day. That is the audio equivalent of Facebook. That's okay? Our military is doing that. We are trying to influence the people in North Korea. What about the ham radio operators that the government did during World War II? We did propaganda over ham radios, and where our regular radio waves wouldn't reach. We used ham radios, and we used U.S. propaganda to influence the government over there. Too far back? Okay, let's do one a little bit more closer to home. How about the Obama administration sending money, a plane full of people, and political operatives over to unseat Bibi Netanyahu in Israel? And it made the papers, front pages. And he did it on purpose. He purposely went over there and interfered in Israeli elections to overthrow Bibi Netanyahu because he didn't like him. That's okay. When a left-wing liberal American does that, that's okay to interfere in somebody else's election. But we're going to get all upset and self-righteous when some unknown, unnamed Russian account spends $11,000 on some silly little Facebook accounts. Really? What about the pamphlets that we dropped over the enemies, encouraging them to surrender during World War I and World War II? Dropping leaflets over those countries telling them to surrender is the equivalent of today's Facebook. There's no difference. If you do it on Facebook, you don't know who or how many people you're reaching. You drop leaflets over, you don't know who or how many people you're reaching. It's the equivalent. And we did that in both wars. And I believe we did it in the Iraq War. How about the governments that the CIA overthrew and installed? And the one that I'm thinking of is the Shah of Iran. We put him in power in there after World War II, and it was well known that we did that. In fact, when he got older and came down with cancer, Jimmy Carter brought him into this country because we knew that they would kill him in his country. So we brought him over here and let him die on American soil. All right. What about Manuel Noriega down in Panama? Under the Reagan administration. He was accused of selling drugs into the United States. Reagan took our military down there, went into a sovereign country, Panama, overthrew Manuel Noriega, took him into custody, and took him to Florida to stand trial. Now, he was convicted, and he spent his life in jail. Okay? He is still alive, and as soon as he gets out here, he's going to Spain to stand for charges over there for something. I don't remember what it was. But we took a sitting head of government into arrest. We arrested him. We went into his country, went into his palace, into his home, and took him forcibly out, brought him to America, put him on trial, and put him in jail. And we're going to get up all self-righteous because the Russians spent $11,000 on some silly little Facebook account? Seriously? And this one just came to light. Back during the Kennedy-Nixon election in 1960. And for those of you that don't know, it was a razor-tight race. Kennedy won, but Kennedy, I'm not sure that Kennedy knew about it, but I'm pretty sure historians will agree that Kennedy's father and Richard Daley in Chicago worked together to carry Illinois for Kennedy. And then LBJ, we know for a fact, did all kinds of shenanigans down in Texas to carry Texas for him. And everybody was encouraging Nixon to have a recount. Nixon's loss worked out to 1.5 votes per county in the country. 1.5 votes per county. That election was stolen. Now, what has been the results of all of this? And I hold the Democrats solely responsible. The liberal Democrats, I hold them solely responsible for this. And here's the result of everything that's going on with these votes. They are forcing Americans to question the legitimacy of all elections. So, the 2018 elections come up. If the Democrats win, the press will claim, we fixed the mess. Facebook and Google and Twitter are all heroes. The legislators are awesome, and it's a legitimate win. If they lose, the press will come out and say, we have to do more. This election isn't legitimate. We know the Russians interfered just like they did before. we lost because of this, claiming the legitimacy of all future elections. And that's a shame. So, pardon me. We're truly terribly sorry. How they're going to clean it up. If they will look at the voter rolls, if you miss 2 elections, if you don't vote in 2 elections, they will send you a card that cannot be forwarded. And the card will say, you must send this card back if you still are registered to vote and reside at this address. If that card does not go back, then they send them another card before the next election and says, you are now going to be taken off of the voter rolls unless you contact us in the next week or so. That's going to eliminate a lot. Now, is there a way to get around that? I'm sure there is, and I'm sure the Democrats are already working on it, but this gives them a place to start. If every state did this, this would clean the rolls up dramatically. Now, that's not going to fix the problem. The problem is things need to be done that I talked about in the last show that I did. And I said, when I went through there was a list of 6 or 7 things. We need to build a wall. That'll keep them out. Photo ID to vote. We need to end chain migration. We need to get E-Verify so that we can verify every employee as a citizen. Chain migration is where they bring in anybody in their family. We need to end the lottery system of legal immigration. And we need to make the legal immigration rules. Ohio, I hope you're doing yours. I live in a blue state. That's never going to happen. We have a Republican governor. I will say this. I did move, and they did send me a card. When I updated my driver's license, they sent me a card and said, we're taking you off of your old polling place and putting you at this new one. So within the state, they've got it fixed here in Illinois. But if I were to move out of state, unless I let my driver's license lapse, they would never catch it. So that was the update on the story I did last week. And kudos to Kentucky. And voters in Kentucky, you should be very proud, and you should encourage your legislature down there. They've done a nice job. They are serious down there by getting their voter rolls cleaned up. And guess what? They're a red state. They're not a blue state. So if all the red states or purple states would do this, that would just leave the blue states, Illinois, Kentucky, the Northeast, and maybe Florida, for them to do that in, to lie and cheat and manipulate. Well, that's a program, everyone. Just a reminder, if you'd like to know a little bit more about who we are or what we do, you can find us online at prayerboxministry.org. That's org. Go over there and check us out. Lots to do over there. That website was created to be an interactive website. You can have the Bible read to you. You can join a prayer group. You can watch our programs. You can listen to the podcast. You can read some blogs. There's all kinds of stuff to do over there. Go over there and check us out. Prayerboxministry.org. We recently about doubled the content over there. Lots to do, lots to keep you occupied. Also, we are on iTunes. If you do iTunes, you can go to iTunes and go to podcast and type in Right Wing Reverend, and you'll find our podcast over there. Listenership has gone up over there quite a bit recently, so the word must be getting out. Go over there and check us out at iTunes, podcast, Right Wing Reverend. Well, that's a program, everyone. You have a blessed week. I look forward to next week when we can sit down and talk about this week in politics.